Now that you've seen how hypervoxels works, let's put it to use and build a sky for our bat scene. I'm going to jump into Modeler, and what we're going to do is create an object that will become the points of our sky. And the reason I'm doing this is because hypervoxels likes to render on points. Now the particle emitter will work for us, but since those are going to be animated, it's hard to make those still. It's easier just to make a big flat object. So I'm just zooming out my screen here to about a 20-meter grid, so it's really big. And then I'm going to choose the box tool, and in the top view, I'm just going to draw out a big, huge box like this. And actually, let's make it a little more square. But before I turn off the box, I'm going to press my up arrow a couple of times and my right arrow about 3 times. Maybe once more each, like that. Click the box tool, turn it off, and press F2 to center. I'll press Q and call these clouds, like that. Just give it a surface name. Then I'm going to press the K command to kill those polygons, leaving just the points. And this is what our clouds will render upon. But they're a little too uniform, and even though I can randomize things in hypervoxels, perhaps it's best just to kind of randomize them here. So let's go to Modify, and then let's just choose Drag, and then we can click and pull on some of these points just to kind of shake them up a bit. You know, you can always just put a flat box in there too and work with transparency just to kind of shake them up a bit. But this is one way just to create a very more controlled sky. And I'm just clicking and pulling on these points just to randomize them. Now there is a function in here called spray points, but I didn't really want that many. And what spray points will do is let you just spray down a huge amount of points. So if you come over here under the Create tab, choose Spray Points. Let me just come to a new layer. Spray Points will let you just kind of put down points like that. And if you use your right mouse, you can kind of like that. And just, you know, spray down those points like that. But that's entirely too many for what we need for our sky. So we'll just get rid of those. All right, so I just need this many. Let's save this, and we're going to put this in our Content Objects folder, and we'll call this Points for Clouds. And then from the top right, we'll hit the little arrow drop down and say Send Object to Layout. So there they are. Doesn't look like anything because, well, it isn't nothing. It's just points. Now I'm going to put it in the back there. So this is where it gets a little trickier. I want to be able to see all of those encompass the scene. So let's get to our camera view. We're going to change our viewport to vertices, allowing us to see those points much easier. And then because our camera needs to be selected, we'll press the Y command, and then we're going to go like that, and then we're going to move in like this, press the T key and right mouse to move up. And you're seeing those as black simply because my camera's selected. Once that object's selected, you'll see it just like that. I'm not going to move those too much. I'm really going to worry about moving the camera. I'm going to move my camera just above my horizon line. And we're doing this all at frame 0. And then Shift O to go back to my objects. So there you can see all the points in the sky. And if I want, I can take the T key and press the blue handle and move those a bit like that. But the reason I like this flat plane of points is that I could simply just kind of, if I wanted to, just slowly animate that over time. Okay. I might do one more thing now that I'm looking at this. Back into Modeler, just hit that Modeler button. Come back here to Modify, hit Drag, and just pull some of these up and down like this. Just give these a little more depth on the Y-axis. That'll help us randomize our sky just a little bit more. Very, very simple setup. And once you do this, you'll see how this works. You can go ahead certainly and manipulate and try your own, but that way it's just a little more random. Control or Command S. I'm going to quit Modeler, and now you can see we've got this back in there and just a little more randomization on those points. Command S to save, and we will say points for sky. And then I'm going to save it one more time. Sky. Just like that. So you can load up the points for sky if you want and continue from this point. So let's go to hypervoxel. So from the Windows drop down, choose hypervoxels. I'll move it over here so you can see. And we'll select the points and hit activate. Let's put on VPR mode so we can see those. It doesn't look like a sky yet. Let's go to Windows again and choose backdrop options. And we're going to put on a gradient backdrop just for the time being. Now back to the hypervoxels panel, we want volumes. Let's see how we can do with these. So in order to create just these kind of clouds we need, you can see just by default we've got quite a bit. We might even have too many points in there. So I'm going to bring the particle size down like this, but I want to create more of a size variation. Okay, and we might even go sprite mode. I'm not quite sure yet. That might actually work better for us because we're going to make more of a nighttime sky. So let's work with our backdrop. Very much like our surfacing where we're doing reflections, where the environment plays a role, the same thing can happen with our clouds. So the zenith, and remember this gradient backdrop is more of an invisible sphere, visible ball around your scene. So the zenith is the very top. And that very top could be a little bit lighter, like that. But the sky, we're going to want darker because it's nighttime, but just sort of a grayish blue. Okay, and we can squeeze that sky in a little bit. I'm going to take the sky color and I'm going to just drag it into my presets. And however your Windows or PC or Mac color panel is, just save that value. Or note the RGB values and then enter them for the ground. That will allow you to get rid of that horizon line. So let's select that one and then smooth that out. And then for the ground, we're going to do just almost dark, but I'm going to go a little more kind of warm. Oh, I did the wrong one. Let's save this. I want the gray for the ground. And then for the nadir, I want that kind of warm brown. And that will bleed up a little bit. Okay, so it's still very, very bright. But you can see the clouds much better. We want to go nighttime with this. So let's get these even a little bit darker. But before I do, if you play with the sky squeeze, what this will do is pull that value up. So imagine if you have a gradient of colors and it's evenly spaced all the way through. By squeezing it, you can compress or stretch that color around the layout. So if I take this, let's say 220, see how that bright blue bleeds all the way down and we have this kind of foggy ground. If I bring it to 0, you can see that the gray from the sky squeezes all the way up. So just a value of about 1 works well. And because of that, I can actually make the sky even darker. And I'm still going to go even more blue like that. And I'm going to save this like that. Yeah. And it's okay if it's got a little purple in it. It can be stylized. And it still might be too bright. Even darker. Save that value. And we'll choose it for the ground. And then we can play with that squeeze in the sky. Pull that up some more. And again, if you squeeze it down, it gets brighter like that. So we might even want just like a 0.5 value. And then the ground squeeze, you can actually bring that up if you want, just for a little bit more color down there. All right. So you can play with that. We're going to change the color of the clouds next. But the trick here is that as I rotate around like this, you've got a little bit lighter up there, a little bit darker there. And you may even want to just put a ground in. We're not going to worry about putting a ground in at this point. So that value down there is just for color. We're going to be looking up at these bats kind of coming around like this. All right, so back to the hypervoxels window. Let's play with our settings here. So sprite mode I like, but if you go back to volume, now you can see what they look like. Possibly a little too strong, but you know, a lot of it has to do with this luminosity as well. So we can take that. We've not done anything with lights yet, so don't worry. We're going to get to that. I'm not crazy about these clouds. I actually really want them just very wispy like this, which will work well. I'm bringing the luminosity down. Now the color of these clouds, I don't mind them a little gray, but we can put a little bit of the bluish sky in there too. Make them a little darker, like that. The density we can increase so that they got a little bit more punch. And the opacity, that's up to your taste. But what I am going to do is see these little separations in here. You can see them, they're almost like they're cracked. I'm going to add more slices, like 5. And you'll see that now they're much cleaner. Let's go back to geometry. I don't want as much of a size variation on this one, even though I really like doing that. We don't need stretch. I'm going to show you that with the motion graphics. And if we increase the particle size, and let's bring this size variation down a little bit, something like that. And then let's go over to hypertexture, and we have crumple in there, but let's go back to ripples and see how that looks. A little softer in there, which is very nice. The other one I like a lot is turbulence. Creates these kind of more fractalized type of clouds. And so using that, we can come down to scale and set this to 10 meters, hit the tab key, 10 meters, and 10 meters. And that then breaks up and sizes this value. So what's happening here is that this computer generated noise texture, this little turbulent, this black and white value, is now being applied to all of these clouds. 10 meters might be a little much. Maybe we'll cut that in half. That's a little bit better, and we can see it in there. And that way we get a little pinching and wisping in there. So you don't really need rotate and fall off in here. We can increase the amplitude so we get a little more punch, and now we've got this kind of nice smoke in there. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this, Control or Command S. Now remember that this is a flat plane. So if I look at the perspective view here, we've got just that flat plane of clouds. That's all it is. But because we're uptight with the camera, it has a really kind of cool look to it. You can go back to Objects, press Shift H for your size, which is under the Modify tab, and you can increase that or decrease it however you like. Because it's just a plane of points. Shift C for the camera and then Y to rotate, and now we've got these points coming through. So really nice way to do clouds. So camera and lights. Let's get to the lights. We only have one default light in the scene right now, and we haven't put our bats in yet. But what we want to do is use volumetrics. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. This is just the sky. Let's get to the next video. Get the bats in there, and then let's put in a cool light that will be almost like a moonlight, and we'll create some volumetrics.